Good morning again. Welcome to NexEdu Skillsoft first webinar for Vietnamese managers. My name is Thảo, NexEdu's marketing manager. Since webinar is relatively new for many people here today, I'd like to give some instructions. First, an email that guides you to log in and participate in the webinar was sent yesterday. Hope you don't find it difficult to access the conference. Mike, can you mute yourself for a while? Thank you. Second, to make it easier for everyone in the very short online conference, you are unable to speak within the webinar. But if you look at your screen, at the bottom of video frame is two icons, chat and Q&A. Please use this if you want to chat to us or other people. Asking questions is more than welcome. However, answers will be given at the end of the show to make sure all important information is delivered. The third one, to recap information, I will briefly summarize the main ideas in Vietnamese, hoping you don't miss the key points. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Mike Wells, joining us from Sydney, Australia. Mike is a seasoned learning professional with strong management experience in technical sales, consulting, and learning roles. Before joining Skillsoft, Mike was Asian Pacific Regional Learning Manager of Hewlett-Packard over a decade. He has extensive regional experience due to his management roles covering Asia Pacific, including China, India, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia, as well as Australia and New Zealand. He has traveled extensively throughout the area to consult a number of national and global firms about their learning and development programs. Mike has certificate 4 in training and assessment. Okay, now I will hand it on Mike. Could anyone say hello to Mike in the chat box, please? Mike, it's your turn.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
I think so. We can hear
okay.
you. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Well, Tal, thank you for inviting me to speak this morning. And the topic that we're going to cover is a very important one right now, and it's very topical at the moment. You know, I'm going to cover a number of dimensions of this, but particularly, you know, try and drill down to sort of how to prepare your employees for digital transformation, which is often known as sort of industry 4.0, but it's really the shape of business in the future. And you know, I'm going to be covering a number of topics today. So let's just quickly look at the agenda. First thing I'm going to do is do a recap of digital transformation. You know, what is digital transformation? And I'm only doing this just to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we have a common understanding of what digital transformation is all about. The next thing I'm going to talk about is, you know, what skills are required to digitally transform an organization. And, you know, following that, you know, how do we validate and develop those skills? So, you know, if we look at digital transformation, we need to have skills to support that. And therefore, we need to validate our existing skill base and then develop to satisfy the requirements. And then I'm going to sort of move on to what are the, you know, e-learning solutions that can help develop those skills. So really a sort of bit of a journey that we're going to go on together this morning to cover this off. And then finally we'll have a Q&A, which I'll let Tal moderate and see if I can respond to some of your questions or some that have already been provided. But before I proceed, and this is going to be a bit tricky, so you're going to have to let me know whether this works or not. But I'd like to just share a digital transformation video, which is part of our courseware. And I hope that this is actually going to come up okay on your screens. So let me, just one moment. Let me just stop this for a second and then, okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was sharing with sound on the system. So let me just play this. It's possible that the video may be just a little bit jittery because of the speed of the internet, but I think you'll get the idea for some of the content.
Falling hardware prices and sophisticated software applications have made powerful digital tools more accessible than ever. Digital transformation is the process of realigning or investing in technology, business models, and processes to drive new value and experiences for businesses, customers, and employees. This allows companies to create new sources of competitive advantage and compete more effectively in the ever-evolving business landscape. Companies also need to distinguish between digital transformation and digital optimization. Optimization adds value through efficiency, and transformation adds value through growth. Both are important, as organizations that don't optimize while also creating new business models and ways to interact with their customers will fall behind. By the mid-2000s, most traditional retailers could see that their products could be delivered digitally, especially media such as movies or music. However, clothing retailers didn't think that consumers would want to buy their clothes online, because they would want to try them on before buying. They were wrong. In 2017, Amazon, the world's biggest online retailer, also became the biggest clothing retailer in the US. Digital commerce affects every retail sector, with Amazon even expanding into the grocery sector. Unlike some companies, General Electric, perhaps better known as simply GE, quickly realized the importance of adapting to a rapidly changing digital business environment. Because of this adaptability, it's now the only surviving company from the 1896 Dow Jones Industrial Average. GE's digital industry strategy began with improving its own internal productivity, and then providing these practices and technologies to its customers. They also make some of their technologies available to companies in other industrial sectors. A successful digital transformation rests on 5 key points. The first is ensuring that the organization develops the capabilities needed for a digital transformation. Next is the development and building of a digital platform for the Internet of Things to run on. The third point is creating a network of partners that drive innovation across sectors. The fourth is changing the employee culture to align with the digital industrial environment, which means focusing on rapid decision-making and the acquisition, development, and retention of digital talent. The final key point is driving business model innovation by keeping operations agile and advancing internal improvements. For any organization to digitally transform itself, it needs to transform its operational processes. For example, a company can use software to automate certain administrative tasks, such as processing invoices. It might then transform its business models by creating an e-commerce store. It also needs to transform the way it interacts with its customers, perhaps by developing an app that allows customers to receive personalized product recommendations. Or, for other businesses, an automated self-service kiosk for customers to complete purchases. Successful companies cannot allow themselves to be left behind after the digital revolution. Digitally transforming an organization is necessary to ensure it will stay competitive in the ever-evolving business landscape.
Okay, so thanks for listening to that.
As part of its digital
Sorry, let me just stop it now. So I think that'll give you a sense for some of the content that we've got available to support digital transformation, as well as give you a quick summary about what digital transformation is all about. But let me just try and define that, just in our own terms and for our own region, because this transformation is one that is not just about the technology that you saw there, but as you also saw, the business models themselves. So if we have a look at digital transformation, the fact of the matter is this is inescapable. All organizations are being threatened by competitors that are innovating in a digital way. And legacy businesses cannot afford to stand still. They must critically look at their own organizations and consider operating in a different way. That really does mean fundamentally changing business processes. And changing those processes isn't just a matter of deciding to do things differently, but it really is changing attitudes and mindsets within the staff to make sure that they are embracing that change and innovating within their own roles. So the HR function also has to undergo a rapid change to make sure that rather than just supporting the business of today, they are supporting the business of tomorrow and really preparing the workforce for the agility required to operate in this new paradigm. And so just a quote from Fujitsu in the UK, but what John Vickerman says is that across the UK, over the last few years, they've seen businesses in every industry grapple with a digital future and what it might mean for them. HR is no exception as the pace of technological change continues to gather speed. And organizations around the world want to make the most of digital technology. However, many businesses are struggling to maximize the potential of this technology. So what he's saying is that there is no question that you need to do this because your competitors are doing it, your peers are doing it, you have to do this as well. But it really does require some concerted effort, particularly on behalf of HR and L&D to put in place learning programs that will allow organizations to move forward in a digital age. So if we then look at, what is digital transformation, let's have a look at a definition for this. Digital transformation is the integration of digital technology. So all of the things that you're starting to hear a lot about, not just the basic computer technology, but all the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, like blockchain, like virtual reality. These start to filter into all areas of business and fundamentally changing how you operate and deliver value to customers. So the end point is delivering a better service to your customers, better products to your customers, but it requires a cultural change that requires organizations to continually challenge the status quo, experiment and get comfortable with failure. And one of the words you'll hear me mention many, many times during this presentation is the term agility. Agility is that flexibility, that agile nature that will allow organizations to experiment, try things, execute them, and then move on to something new or evolve what they're doing. It is no longer possible to have a business model that stays in place for many, many years. Business models need to evolve and change, and this, is quite disruptive for existing business models, and it's happening globally. Now, we saw some examples of that in that video that I showed, but here are some other examples just in the retail space here. And if we look at a company like Uber, which in most parts of the Asia Pacific region has been taken over by Grab, they are the world's largest taxi company, and they compete directly with existing local taxi companies, and yet they own no vehicles. As a company, they have no vehicles of their own. They leveraged a crowdsourced model for a fleet of vehicles that is the largest in the world. And so that has disrupted the taxi industry, and I've got a bit of an example on the next slide about that. If we have a look at Facebook, they are the world's most popular media owner, and yet they create no content at all. They use users, individual people like you and me, to populate their platform with our content to entertain other people or to communicate with other people. So they also introduced a completely different style of communicating and sharing in the world, and obviously the most popular in the world. Airbnb is another provider that has now the world's largest accommodation provider. They compete directly with Hyatt and Hilton and the Marriott chain of hotels, but yet they own no real estate. They just provide a marketplace for people to offer their own real estate to others to become their accommodation when they go on vacation or when they want to stay in another city. So they completely disrupted the hotel business with a completely new business model. And finally, Alibaba, who I'm sure you all know, they are the world's most valuable retailer, but all they are is a marketplace for vendors to reach customers directly, not in the context of an eBay, which is individual to individual for the most part, but this is getting organizations connecting with customers. But as a company, they have no inventory. So again, they've completely transformed the retail space in a very, very short period of time. And one thing you'll notice about these companies is none of these existed, a decade or two ago. These have just come up from nowhere, and they have surpassed in value a lot of the organizations that have been around for, tens or even hundreds of years. So if we have a look at, what this is actually doing locally, if you have a look at an article in VN Express, top Vietnamese taxi company sues Grab for $1.8 million in losses. Grab's business model has completely disrupted the taxi industry in Vietnam to an extent that the Vietnamese cab owners have tried to sue Grab for 1.8 million. Now, in so many respects, there is not much they can do about that because, this has been sanctioned by the Vietnamese government. And the Vietnamese government has embraced this new business model that Grab has taken to market. As such, the taxi owners have no leg to stand on. And what they really need to do is they need to adapt themselves. And one of the things I note in Singapore now is that the taxi companies have become much better at providing credit card capability, at providing online booking, at providing things that Grab introduced and made fundamental to their business model that now the taxi companies need to catch up. So, there's a very local and very recent example of, what is happening just in Vietnam. Similarly, the banks are being disrupted. So in Vietnam, the peer-to-peer lending activity has really taken off. And that's caused the financial institutions to have to re-engineer their offerings, because it has such a tremendous impact on their bottom line. If they can't get individuals, if those individuals are going elsewhere for their financial services, ultimately those financial services will evolve and banks will be marginalized to just managing the big transactions. And clearly that is not what they want to do. So these are just a couple of local examples as to what impact digital transformation is having. And so the fact is that it's having an impact on every vertical and every functional area right now. And so, if we have a look at just the vertical area, you've got the automotive industry, you've got consumer, professional services, telco, mining and minerals, logistics, healthcare, media and aviation. And every single one of these industries has a digitally disruptive technology that is directly impacting their particular business. And so every single one of these industries needs to take on board the new technologies, but also transform the business models to provide that high level of personalization, to provide, Internet of Things for tracking and digital services, to provide robotics and 3D printing for the production of high quality, low volume spare parts through metal printing. I read just yesterday that Hewlett-Packard has now produced over 100 million metal spare parts using its 3D printing technology. And what that means is that no longer do spare parts organizations have to hold inventory of a massive number of spare parts with incredible holding costs for those spare parts. They can just have the specifications for that part either stored locally or sent to them by a manufacturer, and they can print that part locally and make it available instantaneously, bypassing all the supply chain, bypassing all of the transportation costs, and they can just produce a spare part on demand. So, these are massive things that are impacting the industry, but it's also impacting the functional areas themselves. So within each of the verticals, the finance organization is being impacted by things like blockchain or machine learning. Marketing is really being impacted by social and marketing automation, digital marketing, social media in particular, operations, 3D printing, obviously, sales, which is not on here, but sales is being impacted. Call centers are being impacted by artificial intelligence. So there isn't a single part of any organization that isn't being touched by some of the disruptive technologies. So Thảo, let me pass over to you for a quick break in Vietnamese.
Thank you, Mike. That was awesome. Let me recap it in Vietnamese. Thảo xin nhấn mạnh lại một số thông tin nền mà Mike vừa chia sẻ như sau. Thứ nhất, chuyển dịch số thực chất là cái quá trình mà tích hợp công nghệ vào mọi khía cạnh của công ty và hoạt động kinh doanh sẽ làm thay đổi một cách căn bản cái cách mà công ty đang vận hành hoạt động để mang lại cái giá trị cho khách hàng. Đây là một cái xu hướng mà tất yếu không thể tránh né được tại tất cả các lĩnh vực kinh doanh cũng như là tại tất cả các mặt tài chính, marketing và vận hành của một tổ chức. Mike cũng có chia sẻ là anh chị có thể không quan tâm đến quá trình này. Anyway thì đối thủ và đối tác của anh chị thì cũng đang thực hiện chuyển dịch số rồi. Đây cũng là một cái quá trình mà chuyển dịch về văn hóa, khi mà các tổ chức liên tục phải thách thức những cái hiện trạng hiện có của kinh tế xã hội, liên tục phải thử nghiệm những cái mới và làm quen với việc mà họ sẽ phải gặp những cái thất bại. Tại Việt Nam thì không biết các anh chị quản lý đã cảm nhận thấy được cái áp lực cạnh tranh từ những cái mô hình kinh doanh mới hay chưa, những cái mô hình rất khác biệt với truyền thống. Ở những cái slide phía trên thì Mai cũng đã đưa ra những cái ví dụ về sự kiện giữa công ty taxi truyền thống Vinasun và Grab Taxi, một loại hình vận tải vô cùng phổ biến trong khoảng 3 đến 5 năm trở lại đây. Trong khu vực và trên thế giới, các nhà lãnh đạo đã hoàn toàn nhận thức được nếu như không chuyển hóa tổ chức của mình, công ty sẽ sớm bị lạc hậu. Như một cái câu trích dẫn ở phía trên của giám đốc nhân sự khu vực Anh và Ireland của tập đoàn Fujitsu, thì ông ấy đã chia sẻ là trong một vài năm qua tại Anh, các công ty trong tất cả các lĩnh vực đều đang bị ám ảnh với câu hỏi là tương lai số có ý nghĩa gì đối với công ty của họ, và những cái giám đốc nhân sự cũng đang rất băn khoăn về cái vấn đề. Mike có nhấn mạnh rằng là người quản lý nhân sự thì các anh chị cần nhận thức và cảnh báo cho CEO của mình. Ông ấy có nói là HRD jobs is to train the CEO, là những người mà giám đốc về nhân sự thì phải coach lại, phải train lại cho những người lãnh đạo của mình về cái việc là phải chuẩn bị cho nhân sự của mình những cái khung năng lực, những cái kỹ năng cần thiết để mình có một cái công sở số trong cái thời đại digital transformation hiện tại. Và bây giờ thì chúng ta sẽ tiếp tục với phần trình bày của Mike. Thank you, Mike. Please keep going with your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Thảo, and thank you for summarising that in local language. I know that will be much easier for people to understand and take on board. So what I'd like to move on now is just have a look at the skills that are required to prepare for digital transformation. So this is the next part of the session. And one of the things that becomes quite clear is that the technologies are one thing, but it's the mindset, it's the change in business attitudes that will really be supportive of a transition, of a digital transformation. So I'm just going to go through this quickly and then drill down to some of the top skills that are required. And I think one of the top ones here is, having a collaborative and team mindset rather than a somewhat siloed mindset that we're used to. We're really used to working in divisions where we have, finance and operations and sales and marketing, and they all work kind of independently, whereas collaboration is going to be key in the future. The second thing is really focusing on continuously upskilling. So have that growth mindset at a personal level and at an organizational level. So continuous learning, a learning culture is really important to make sure that the flexibility and agility is embedded within the organization. The other thing is to be, technically savvy, for the people with these attitudes to harness the technology that's available and have this real digitally dexterous mindset. In other words, have that adaptive capability that will take on board that new technology and immediately turn it into a business competitive advantage. So it's the combination of people and technology that will allow your organizations to win. The next point there is in terms of big data. We are surrounded by enormous volumes of data about customer behavior, about what's happening out in the marketplace. Every interaction is captured, and analyzing that data and having a way to translate that data into more meaningful business decisions, better products and solutions to customers is absolutely critical. And finally, things are not going to be as straightforward. There will no longer be standardized vertical processes to manage the business by. We're going to have to be much more flexible, and we're going to encounter problems that we haven't seen before because of that enormous flexibility that we now have. So developing a problem-solving and critical thinking mindset is a really important attribute to support the transition to digital transformation. So let me drill down a little bit further into the sort of 10 key skills that we see here. And I'm going to come back to the one that I've mentioned already and that I'm going to keep suggesting here, is it is agility that will win. The ability to create something new and tune it, modify it, update it, or even replace it if it no longer serves the purpose. It isn't a matter of creating a new strategy, a new business model, and then sticking with that for the next 10 years. It's really looking at that business model, critically every single month and saying, is this still serving the purpose that we intended it to? So, it is, completely agile in nature. If you think about the agility just from a programming point of view, you'll find that most software now is built with an agile framework. And what that means is no longer do you get a piece of software that is released and then 1 year later you would get an update. That doesn't happen anymore. If you think about your mobile phone and the apps that you have on your mobile phone, you'll see that the apps are updated sometimes daily. There are always new versions of apps because the app vendors are using an agile approach for developing their applications. They're seeing a customer need, they're updating their code, they're launching it to you, and you may see 4 or 5 different app updates every single day you open up your phone. And this is because those vendors have taken on this agile approach and they are evolving as rapidly as their customers' needs are evolving. And that's what we need to do in our own organizations. The other thing is that, design thinking is a real critical skill that has to be embedded within the organization. And what that means is really understanding what it is that customers are looking for, being very, very customer-centric in the design-centric approach that they have. So making sure that in everything that is designed to provide a new customer service, a customer product, a customer interaction, that it is designed around the customer need. The next thing here is new media. It is no longer possible to operate a business by advertising in the newspaper or on television, because nobody watches television, nobody reads newspapers anymore to the extent that they look at the internet for the latest information. And not only will they look at the internet, but they will look at the social media. They will look at Facebook and Chatter and Jabber and all of the social media tools for advice and guidance as to what products they should buy, what services they should take, who they should do business with. And so organizations need to understand how to harness the power of that new media. No longer will they take out ads in newspapers. It's been long the case that Google ads have been the ones that have been most beneficial to businesses. But it's not just a matter of advertising, but it's using those social platforms, those referral platforms, those review platforms to make sure that they are on top of any social feedback. If there is any situation where a product has a problem and that problem becomes visible on the internet, it can be very harmful to an organization. So being able to be involved in the discussion on the internet and turn that around to a positive customer experience by resolving that issue very quickly is absolutely crucial. So having that new media literacy is pivotal. The next skills that are required is really around what I was talking before about the collaboration. And I'm going to put these three up together because really they work together to provide a much more effective way to operate as an organization, because no longer do you operate in a silo approach. I mentioned this previously. No longer is it finance focuses on finance, sales focuses on sales, manufacturing focuses on manufacturing, marketing on marketing. The fact is that it is a team of people that comprise a marketing professional, a sales professional, a manufacturing, a support professional, working together to take products and solutions to market. Because unless they are connected together, it means that design will design something, they'll hand it to manufacturing, manufacturing will say we finished it and they'll hand it to marketing, marketing will start marketing it and hand it to sales with a price list, and that is a very, very long process. In an agile approach, you do everything in parallel. You work in teams, and not only do you work in teams, but obviously they are cross-functional teams. They're across all the various functions, and often those teams are remote. The manufacturing facility may be in another country, let alone another part of the part of your country, and so you've got to be able to communicate and collaborate virtually as well as locally. So all of these skill sets around, connectivity, communication, collaboration, and teamwork really work together to provide that agility that the customer expects from your organization. The next thing, of course, is the analytical data-driven mindset, leveraging all of that big data to make data-driven, customer-focused decisions. The big data that you draw upon from all of your customer interactions will tell you what your customers prefer, what they don't like, what they are looking to have next. You need to harness that information, you need to aggregate that information, and you need to use your own thoughts and through that construct build new products and solutions. One of the things that at Skillsoft, our company develops e-learning, and we sell training content to 65% of the Fortune 500 companies in the world. And because of that, we have a vast number of interactions. We have millions of people accessing our content every single day. And so we know what people like, what they use, how they use our content, how they access our content. Is it through mobile? Is it through desktop? What are their preferred study methods? Are they using books? Are they using courses? Are they using videos? And we feed all of that big data back to our development cycle so that we develop the right content with the right modalities to suit the needs, tomorrow's needs. And we combine that with one-on-one feedback from all of our customers to make sure that what we are delivering is not just relevant for today, but it is relevant for tomorrow. Then the next one is obviously the customer-centric orientation. I think that's come up in pretty much all of these, but everything has to be around the customer. It has to be solving the pain points that customers suffer, and making sure that we are addressing those pain points in a way that provides the best possible customer experience. So a customer-centric orientation is a critical skill for digital transformation. And finally, and this again goes to agility, but that passion for continuous learning. What you know today may not be good enough for the skills that you need for tomorrow. So continuously learning, not just saying, okay, I understand marketing, I've done my marketing degree. That isn't enough anymore. Because when you did your marketing degree, maybe social media wasn't around. So you've actually got to learn a new area of marketing, because you know, you've got to harness social media. You've got to know how to deal with email, with chatter groups, with Twitter, and how to interact with people on Twitter. You know, these are all new technologies that mean that you have to stay up to date. So developing that continuous learning passion within individuals, or even the you know, a continuous learning culture in your organization is you know, absolutely one of the top 10 crucial skills. So again, I'm going to hand to Thảo now for a quick summary in Vietnamese. You know, just validating and developing digital transformation skills. And so, you know, what I'd like to just go through first is a very simple checklist, and it just has a you know, small number of questions to ask yourself about your own organizations to try and assess, you know, whether you are digital transformation ready. And obviously these questions, they are general questions that apply to every business, but you may want to tune these questions to more critically analyze your own organizations depending on your own circumstances. So, you know, what I'm covering here are 3 key areas of digital transformation readiness. The first one being comprehension, the second one being capability, and the third one being tools. So if we just look at the comprehension section first, then, you know, are employees actually aware of the ways that technology is affecting their industry? You know, I think it would be really important for you to educate your own staff for your particular industry, how you believe technology is impacting your respective business. You know, whether you're in pharmaceuticals or manufacturing or telecommunications, technology is having a different impact on each of your respective organizations. And your employees need to understand what is happening, because only then can they start to develop in a way that addresses your competitive advantage and how you can stay relevant in tomorrow's business. The second question here is technology used only to replicate offline processes faithfully, or are both processes and practices constantly revisited? And what this is saying is that it's very easy to use technology to just automate existing business processes. And in many respects, that's what computing has done, is they've taken an existing process and they've been able to do it faster with computer support. But what we're talking about here is not just replicating those processes as they stand, but it's actually revising both the processes and the practices. So it is a really important part of the digital transformation readiness. So, understanding where you're at with that. Are employees able to relate and apply digital practices for specific business benefit? So this really takes some of the technologies and think about them in terms of what benefit they could give to your organization or indeed to your customers. So, are you actually at that stage at the moment in terms of your understanding of digital transformation? And the last one in the comprehension area is the language expanding? it used to be that only IT people would talk about technology and the impact it's having on the business because they'd be automating existing processes. But really, non-IT employees still need to be talking about, what could we do with artificial intelligence in our call centers? What could we do with blockchain to support our tracking and ledger management? There are so many new technologies, and everybody needs to be thinking about how these technologies can apply in their business. So that's really about the comprehension side. If we look at the capability, then it's, are there formal training and on-demand learning opportunities for employees? In other words, do they have at their fingertips resources that will allow them to come up to speed with new technology or even get ahead of the curve? Do they have access to books, to courses, to videos, to resources that will help them prepare for tomorrow? Because, in so many respects, the organization has to enable employees to get access to the content they need to improve their own skills. Have employees developed a continuous learning mentality to support organizational agility? It's not just about making the training available, as in point one. That is something that you have to do. But if there isn't this attitude, this culture of continuous learning in the organization, you could have a large amount of training resources that just don't get used because people don't understand why they need to do it. It really is a matter of saying learning is fundamental to the future of our organization, and we will reward people for continuous learning. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. I'm not even going to start on that topic, but it really is a matter of evolving from a learning point of view to making sure that people have that attitude towards learning that really improves the business. Are employees operating and collaborating effectively in cross-functional local and remote teams? This goes to the teamwork thing and the non-siloed approach. Are you still operating in silos would be another way to answer that question. If the answer is yes, then you need to encourage teamwork. You need to form virtual teams every time you encounter a business problem, because a virtual team, a cross-functional team, can solve a business problem much faster than a single team because you get alternate perspectives on the issue itself. And the final part of capability is, are employees harnessing data to make effective business decisions? And so it really is delving into that big data, understanding those trends that are impacting your business, and making sure that you are factoring in that information that you've already got from your customer interactions to improve the services and products that you take to them. So that's on the capability side. And then on the tools side, there's, do employees know how to find what they need to solve a problem and who will support it? Do you have those online or social resources that will, allow employees to be properly supported in whatever they need? Are employees involved as advisors in the technical selection and rollout processes? Employees are not ignorant about new technology, and they often, they go home and they use social media, they use Netflix, they use online video and audio streaming. They may come back into the office and say, why don't we do this? We could actually provide a much better service to customers if we were to do it the way that Netflix does it, do it the way that Amazon does it. There's no harm in plagiarizing ideas from other organizations. But using your employees as a good set of advisors in the technology selection and business process rollout process is really important. Are the collaborative tools in place? Do employees connect with each other rather than just by email? I think we all know that email is a very useful tool from a record keeping point of view, but it is overwhelming in a working day. So that's why tools like Slack, like Jabber, like Chatter have all taken off, is because these tools are much more instantaneous, much more point-to-point. They can be one-to-one, one-to-a-group. They really support the cross-functional collaboration that we've been talking about, because you can create and disband groups on things like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, on WeChat. You can do them very, very quickly just to serve a project purpose, and then you can disband them. So those collaborative tools should not be restricted or necessarily even defined by IT. And it really does support that agile decision making. And then, are the tools regularly benchmarked against consumer-led systems? In other words, are they as easy to use as Netflix, as Jabber, as Twitter? It's not just a matter of creating a corporate system. It's making sure that it is simple and easy to use. It's just a few clicks away from having an effective solution. So,
hello, I'm back. Can I do the sum up?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So can you please come back to the previous slide? Thanks a lot, Mike. I'm so sorry for the technical issues. So the content we got is a crucial part. I will do summary now. Phần vừa rồi là một phần mà rất quan trọng. Mai đã liệt kê cho chúng ta những cái tư duy và kỹ năng cần thiết cho một tổ chức, một doanh nghiệp trong kỷ nguyên số. Thảo xin tóm tắt lại là có 4 cái mindset, hoặc là có thể nói tiếng Việt là 4 cái cách thức tư duy mà chúng ta từ những người quản lý đến nhân viên đều cần có trong một cái kỷ nguyên số. Tư duy thứ nhất đấy là về team collaboration mindset, tức là tư duy về làm việc đội nhóm. Những người quản lý thì cần phải ý thức được rằng cái đơn vị nhóm đội sẽ là một cái đơn vị chính ở trong một tổ chức, chứ không phải là những cái phòng ban nữa. Đặc biệt là những cái nhóm này sẽ là những cái nhóm mà cross functional team, tức là hoạt động với cái đa chức năng, nhiều chức năng khác nhau giữa nhiều cái phòng ban khác nhau. Cái tư duy thứ hai mà chúng ta phải trang bị cho bản thân cũng như là nhân viên của mình, đó là growth mindset, một tư duy mở, học tập không ngừng nghỉ, tức là cả cá nhân và hệ thống liên tục phải học hỏi những kiến thức và kỹ năng mới để không bị tụt hậu trong bối cảnh số. Tư duy thứ ba đó là technical adaptive mindset, là cái khả năng và xu hướng mà phải tiếp cận liên tục với những kỹ thuật và công nghệ và đưa những cái kỹ thuật công nghệ mới này vào ứng dụng trong công việc tại công sở của chúng ta. Tư duy thứ tư là data literacy mindset, một văn hóa mà ra quyết định dựa trên những dữ liệu mà thu thập được, chứ không đơn thuần chỉ dựa vào kinh nghiệm, sự nhạy bén cá nhân hay là lịch sử, những cái hồ sơ mà đã được ghi nhận đã diễn ra trong quá khứ nữa. Tư duy thứ năm là complex problem solving and critical thinking mindset, một tư duy về giải quyết vấn đề và phản biện. Khi mà những cái công việc mang tính chất lặp đi lặp lại, những cái routine work sẽ dần được thay thế bởi máy tính, con người sẽ không đơn thuần chỉ thực hiện các tác vụ hàng ngày mà họ cần được trang bị một tư duy phản biện và xử lý vấn đề. Nói cách khác là họ phải làm được những cái công việc mà máy móc không đáp ứng được. Như vậy thì trong 5 cái mindset trên thì Mike có liệt kê ra cho chúng ta một series những cái digital skill, những kỹ năng số mà ông ấy đã nhóm vào 3 cái nhóm là comprehensive, possibility và tools, như là slide gần đây nhất mà các anh chị có thấy. Mai đang giúp chúng ta là đánh giá lại cái thực trạng nhân lực của các anh chị hiện tại. Thì đánh giá như thế nào? Cái thứ nhất là đánh giá về cái nhận thức của mọi người về cái quá trình chuyển dịch số này. Cái thứ hai là cái năng lực của mọi người, và cái thứ ba là những cái công cụ mà mọi người đang sử dụng. Họ đã biết những cái công cụ sẵn có thể hỗ trợ họ làm việc rất là nhanh và rất là hiệu quả hơn hay chưa. Như vậy vậy thì trong cái slide tiếp theo, Mai sẽ cung cấp các kỹ năng cần thiết nhất ở trong từng cái nhóm mindset này. Đây sẽ là một cái danh sách khá là dài, nhưng mà các anh chị đừng lo vì NexEdu sẽ gửi lại cái danh sách chi tiết cùng với recording của chương trình. Bây giờ thì mời các anh chị tiếp tục theo dõi. Mike, please keep going with validating and developing digital transformation skills. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So let me just jump back to where we were, and let me just quickly show this slide. And I'm not going to talk through this slide, but I'd just like to give you an indication of some of the e-learning content that we have that supports each of these mindsets. You know, I spoke about developing these mindsets and all of the skills that you need. You know, these are just a sample of some of the courses that we've got that are mapped to each of these mindsets. So in the team and collaboration mindset, for example, we've got virtual collaboration, we've got developing and managing teams, being an effective team member, effective team communication. So you can see that we have very carefully curated content around each of these mindsets. So as you progress in developing these mindsets in your organization, just be assured that we've got content that supports all of these. So what I'd like to just move on to now is just look at, you know, what constitutes a successful learning program. And you know, we've taken a lot of information from our customers. This is how we use some of our big data from our customers. And one of the things that we focus on is, you know, what are those programs that have high utilization? In other words, where customers have built a learning program and the vast majority of their staff use that learning program. And there are just a number of key dimensions to what constitutes a successful program. The first one, and almost the most important one, is that executive and management sponsorship. I'm talking about the CEO and the C-level part of the organization are completely behind the e-learning programs that you put together. So successful programs, you know, 88% of those managed programs with executive support, 96% of those with executive support have goals or success criteria in place. So it's coming from the top, it's aligned with the organizational goals, and that will drive a much more successful program outcome. If we have a look at, you know, the alignment itself, so aligning that with the corporate goals, 95% of the successful programs align the content with those business initiatives, those business goals, and 87% of those programs aligned to those initiatives are actively marketed. You know, marketing and communications is absolutely crucial, and I don't know why that went backwards. I do apologize for this. Let me just, I beg your pardon. I don't know quite why that went backwards there. Yeah, 87% of those programs aligned to those initiatives are actively marketed, and it's the ongoing marketing and promotion of that learning, you know, how it is that you're going to develop those skill sets required for digital transformation. You know, they must be actively marketed amongst users until they have developed that e-learning culture where you need to market and promote learning to a much lesser extent. In the initial stages, you really need to promote this. You know, alongside promoting the digital transformation skills initiative itself, promote that in concert with continuous learning. And then I think that you'll start to get much more self-propelled learning, which is ultimately what you need to achieve. The next thing, of course, is to make sure that you're reviewing the program and tuning the program as things need to change. You know, agility comes in here as well. And so 90% of the successful program owners conduct regular review meetings and discuss how they can continuously improve the program for better results, greater adoption, higher skill levels, what comes next. And the final thing here is making sure there are sufficient internal resources to manage the program. And this isn't just about L&D or HR resources that would drive and measure and manage the program, but it's also about making sure that managers and leaders within the organization have sufficient resources that they can communicate in their weekly meetings with their staff, the results that they've achieved and the things that employees need to be doing. And so, having that presented at all levels of the organization will really drive success of a learning program. And at Skillsoft, we've got very comprehensive program launch and management guidelines that are available online for anyone to use. But this is typically where you would use the help of a Skillsoft partner like NexEdu to come in and consult with your organization and help you put together programs and all of the various components of this cycle in order to drive successful learning outcomes. And that's why we partner at a local level with organizations like NexEdu, because they have the local expertise in local language that can really help you drive successful outcomes here. So just moving on, and for some reason it's gone back again and I don't know why. So I'm going to use this button here in future. So looking at the e-learning solutions that support the skills required, we have a complete digital transformation collection that covers not just the technologies themselves. So in the essentials of digital transformation, we have all of the technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, adaptive reality, virtual reality. We've got all of the technologies here, but then we've got all of the digital soft skills. We've got digital marketing, digital experiences. What does the user interface look like? And a complete segment on agility for digital transformation. So we've got a very comprehensive suite of e-learning that will help you put together the training programs that you need to prepare your organization for the digital age. So, I think in summary, the digital skills in your organization from an HR perspective really need to be targeted at 3 areas. The first one of which is executives. Executives need to understand this new technology, some of the disruption that's coming their way, and the need for employees to have that level of agility, have all of those mindsets that I spoke about previously. They need to understand that. They need to understand the technologies that are going to be impacting their business. They need to build a business strategy to harness those technologies, and then they need to understand and communicate the skills required to execute that strategy. So that is their job. They've got to define and drive the strategy itself. Managers that report into the executive team, their responsibility is to execute the strategy. So, what they need to do is they need to assess the skills required to execute the company strategy. They need to validate the skills of their existing workforce, and then they need to identify the new skills that will allow the execution of that company strategy and embrace those new mindsets. And they will work with L&D to put together the e-learning programs or the blended learning programs that will allow that strategy to be executed. And then the final part of this is the individual contributors themselves. So, what is it that they need to do at a personal level to stay relevant in their existing role, or prepare for new roles if their own existing job goes away. You know, a lot of individual contributors in today's organizations, their jobs will become redundant over a period of time as they get automated, as technology surpasses what they were doing. And so they need to be preparing for the next job to add more value to their organization. And as individuals, they need to understand that. They need to analyze their own skill sets. They need to identify how to stay relevant and grow, and understand the future roles that may exist to accelerate their career growth. And they themselves, at a personal level, need to embark on a learning journey to fulfill those roles and whatever comes next. So digital transformation is something that impacts all layers of an organization. It impacts all organizations, regardless of industry. And it's not just coming tomorrow, but it's here today. So with that, I'm just going to open up for a Q&A, and Tal, I'll pass back to you to moderate that, and see if anybody has any questions or you have anything. Are you able to unmute yourself, Tal?
Thanks, Mike. You just given very valuable insights about methods and skills to be used in the future workplace. So everyone, don't worry if you cannot read through the long list of skills. NexEdu will more than happy to send it all to you. Our meeting will be stopped within about 8 to 10 minutes. I'm sorry about that. Let me see. Maybe I have about 1 and 2 questions here. Mike, can you will you give us some information for the question? Should small and medium businesses invest in e-learning for the first stage? If yes, why?
I think the answer to that question is that small and medium businesses have exactly the same dynamics happening to them as large enterprises. You know, they are individually facing a digital transformation paradigm. And if we take on board, you know, a small business like a real estate agent, somebody who's selling property as part of their business, you know, they had to transform from their window displays to digital marketing. They had to transform their sales force to be more effective at using big data to be more effective with their customers. You know, there is no escaping digital transformation, regardless of the size of your organization. So I think e-learning can really assist small and medium businesses. And in fact, I think it has an even more positive benefit for small organizations, because a small organization may have a very small number of staff, and it is very difficult to allow someone from a small organization to go off on a 1, 2, 3, 5-day training course, instructor-led, because it leaves a gap in their office. Whereas e-learning can be done anywhere, anytime, and it can be done with the time that you've got available. It can be done in lunch breaks, it can be done in a grab taxi, it can be done you know, in between appointments while you're waiting for a customer to get back to you, and so you can use that time effectively for continuous learning or for skilling up in some of these areas without having to take time out of a business day, which is much more disruptive for a small organization than a big one. So I'd say absolutely yes. I think it's as important, if not more important, for smaller organizations than big ones. Tao, do you have any more questions?
Yes, Mike, we received some questions just now. Okay, let me pick a question. The first one, what kinds of topic and subjects that we should use e-learning instead of using a traditional class? Ms. Tuyet asked, could you give some of your idea, please?
Yes, that's a very good question. And I mentioned blended learning before. I think a blended learning approach is a much more effective way to leverage e-learning rather than just e-learning on its own or instructor-led training on its own. Because what you can use the e-learning for is all of the foundational knowledge that you need in a particular subject. But of course, one of the areas that e-learning doesn't help with is that, collaborative discussion, the expertise of a subject matter expert, the sort of thing that you would typically get in a classroom from the instructor or the trainer. So I think that if you leverage e-learning for the foundational skills, the knowledge, all the basic information, and then reserve the classroom for the high value case study analysis, the discussion, the anecdotes and information that only a trainer can provide, then you can have the most effective learning programs. But I'd absolutely say that e-learning is fantastic for foundational skills development.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I received another question about the internal experience. I mean, the best practice from international organization, how to build L&D strategy and how to employ e-learning in L&D. Can you keep going with that, Mike?
Sorry, could you explain that one a little bit more? I'm just a little bit unclear as to...
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Minh Duan is wondering, he wants to hear more about the international experience. I mean, what are the international organizations are doing with their L&D strategy?
Okay. I guess from a company point of view, what we see is organizations moving to a lot of what we term just-in-time learning, and I think that talks a lot to the agility that I was talking about before, because often, because of the fast pace of business right now, it's not possible to predict the knowledge that you need tomorrow. And what you need to be able to do is, if you have a particular knowledge need for tomorrow, you need to be able to study it today. And so what that means is that you need to be able to find relevant training and consume relevant training in whatever size that may be, but typically it would be 5, 10, 15 minutes, a granular set of training that would support the workforce. There is no question that prescriptive programs that train up for the long term continue to be very important, but one of the biggest trends we see is dynamic learning, and that all comes from a learning culture. It comes from a continuous learning attitude, and it means that if I want to learn something new, I can pop in, I can do 5 minutes of training, and I feel more comfortable with that topic. And that's why, if you look at all Skillsoft courses, and even the one that we showed when we started this call, you'll see that it is typically a 30-minute course that comprises of 6 5-minute modules. And so you can just learn 5 minutes at a time, and you can go through that entire course in 30 minutes in 5-minute chunks. And it's that ability that really plays to what we term the modern learner, that just doesn't have the time that they need to go through an entire course in one go, but they can learn what they need in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mike. We have another question from Mr. Tonang. He said, from organization point of view, how do we put e-learning in the learning process? It means learn, evaluate, and put learning into the working environment to create value.
Yeah, that's a very big question, and I think it requires more time than we have available today. And I think this is an area, Thảo, where someone from your team could consult with the customer on this. But I think embedding e-learning in an organization is a complementary approach to your total learning strategy. Obviously you've got areas of knowledge that you need to create and maintain in the organization, and I think you can look critically at every single one of those areas and say, how could we harness e-learning for part, if not all, of this learning pathway that we've defined. And then you can put together learning programs that will go step by step through a series of e-learning modules, move on to a workshop that you may conduct, and do that by subject area. And certainly the platforms are available to facilitate that. The e-learning is available to facilitate that, and your current instructors, whoever teaches your people today, would be more than happy to facilitate much higher value face-to-face sessions than teaching people just the basics. They'd probably rather get away from that and provide much higher value training, which they have the ability to do. I'm not sure if that actually answered the question, but I think it would be worthwhile having a longer conversation with that particular customer.
Yeah, sure, Mike. Mr. Tuấn Anh, NexEdu also have a lot of consulting from Skillsoft about implementing e-learning in the corporate environment. So we would more than happy to talk to you more about it after the event. I think we're gonna go with the last question. So Mr. Mike already spent a lot of valuable time with us. Mr. Mike, there is a final question. What is the model of digital workplace and how it operates?
I think that varies by organization. Remember that sort of digital is a very broad term. It isn't necessarily something that is that easy to get your arms around, because digital to some people is learning Excel, PowerPoint and Word. Digital to other people is having a web presence. So I think the first thing to sort of understand is the digital itself and what that means. I think the critical thing though is that it's the new digital technologies that are completely disrupting the workplace right now that need to be embraced organization by organization. If you're a financial institution, then you've got to be considering how to harness the power of a blockchain model. For example, if you're running a call center, how can you harness the power of artificial intelligence to provide dialogue with your customers using a computer rather than having to have people in a call center? So there are a lot of digital models that can be adapted depending on the function and depending on the style of the company itself. And so, I think the question that was asked would probably take a book to answer, not just a few words from me. But it is something that I think all of your users would benefit from doing some internet research on, and certainly talking to the NexEdu team about.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. I think our meeting is come to an end. Thank you very much, Mr. Mike. We really appreciate the time and effort today and many days before that. I believe your presentation brings great values to our guests today. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with NexEdu. We know that you have having a busy day and take out more than 1 hour is great commitment. File ghi âm của chương trình thì sẽ được chuyển tới các anh chị trong tuần này, và các anh chị có thể chia sẻ thông tin với đồng nghiệp, lãnh đạo và bạn bè để mọi người đều được cập nhật những thông tin hữu ích. Nếu anh chị muốn học thử một khóa học nào đấy trong chương trình Digital Transformation của Skillsoft thì vui lòng liên hệ với NexEdu qua số hotline đang hiện trên màn hình. And okay, thank you so much, Mike. I think that's the end of the meeting, and I hope to see you in Vietnam very soon. Goodbye, Mike. Goodbye, everyone.